Welcome, Xceinie, to our first Peanut Butter Jelly Wars podcast.
Hello. Yeah, happy to chat with you about this.
Yes, and for those who don't know, Xceinie is a legacy champion of Peanut Butter Jelly Wars. He was dethroned by Mr. Kirby last time during the Gnome Cup, but who knows, maybe in the next tournament you'll be able to reclaim your crown.
Depends on how Nomi it gets in there.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I've always been really impressed by your games because you, in this one tournament, it's not up on YouTube, but because like the quality was really bad. But you had this one tournament where you basically just got it down to a science of mastering the macro strat. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
was impressed.
Gen 2 kind of prompted that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Gen 2, I think we traded off and he was, yeah, like the last match, he was going to use, I don't know, UFOs or something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to hold off using UFOs anymore. I'm just going to feed into it. And then it ended up working really well. And then I ended up, yeah, having success the rest of the tournament, kind of giving into my resistance using UFOs at that time.
Yeah, whenever I play against you, I feel like I'm pretty much doomed if I don't use UFOs. But but yeah. Anyway, but I'll talk about our topic today in our podcast, where we have a bunch of newcomers that came into the Discord. I'm still not sure how many of them are interested in tournaments, but hopefully a good amount of them are. And we are planning on. I haven't done a poll yet. I plan on doing one soon. Uh, anyway, I want to I want to give some tips to some of the newcomers because yeah, anyway, we want to do a newcomer tournament. That's what I was trying to say. We want to do a newcomer tournament, and I thought this would be a good opportunity just for us to talk about, hey, like, what do we recommend for newcomers? Because I'm obsessed with tier lists, and I've posted tier lists in the past where I put like the cuckoo squid and a really powerful niche tier. But however, for a newcomer, I would not recommend the cuckoo squid. There's some other units that might not be as recommended. So I think this would be a good opportunity to talk about what we recommend for newcomers. Because if you're not as familiar with the game, there's some this better safe strategy. So um, I think what we'll start off with is let's talk about the number three tips of what we would recommend for newcomers, and I'll have you go with your number one, and I'll do my number one, and you'll do your number two, and so on. We'll do it like that.
Okay, sure. So my top one I feel like would be don't leave your base unattended or without some sort of defense. Try to make sure that you don't have any obvious openings, whether that's leaving some cannons, making at least a couple cannons to put around your base, your jar, um, or maybe just having a bunch of bread or whatever, just something so they can't just run in there real easily.
Interesting. That's interesting. Um, for you, do you think uh, it's just were you just remember getting rushed a lot early on?
I think it's if you said I'm just picturing a newcomer selling everything and then not
Mm.
having anything near and then just kind of running up and trying to like attack the jar and
Oh
then
yeah.
the opponent could just release an ant or something and then it's over.
Honestly, yeah.
Um,
That's interesting because I actually think a lot of newcomers don't even aren't even familiar with that strategy of selling everything at the beginning. But I do think you're right. Like if you do, I think that is. I don't know if it's my number one tip. There's actually. I'll just say it's. I'll just tell you what my number two tip was. I guess since we're talking about it, and that is sell at the beginning, and but however you want to use that to make piggy banks. So I think you're right because I think a lot of people will sell and then attack. I think for newcomers, I recommend selling and then placing down piggy banks because if you just attack, you're going to leave yourself open and your opponent's going to be able to get you back. But it is important to sell. But yeah, it's interesting. So like, what do you have any tips of how to keep their base defended while, or do you think it's just more of that they need to stay in their base? They don't have to like should they build a wall all around their base, or do you think they should just like to stick around their base in the early game?
I think for newcomers, having like a couple sets of like three cannons, maybe on each side to like kind of deter things, and then maybe having a like some other kind of support, like small support. It doesn't have to be like a lot. Like maybe it's like a couple honey cannons or just like a wall of bread
Mm,
or a couple of pieces of toast. For newcomers, like playing each other, I would say that could go a long way because the wall of bread could like throw some people off if you don't know how to get past that easily. I say like kind of like three sets of threes because the cannons aren't that expensive. So you can just put a clump of three next to each other, and I feel like that'd be enough to kind of be annoying to get past. Um, and yeah, like other support like honey cannons or whatever it is, like even maybe like hive or something that kind of just releases stuff over time. That yeah, that could help just fortify a bit as well. So I wouldn't recommend like you said, like just selling and then not putting any piggy banks down, but maybe having a small, tiny support system so you're
yeah,
not just kind of like,
yeah,
like a
I,
sitting duck.
no, for sure. I think to clarify what I was saying before, so and I'll talk about my number two tip since this kind of transitions well. I would specifically, it depends on what stage you're on, but to keep it simple, I would I would not sell your cannons at the beginning. I would keep your cannons around because I think the best line of defense for a newcomer I say is this: spam cannons. Whenever your opponent is coming nearby, just spam cannons, and then I think you're probably golden. Because sometimes the cannons will just get them, and I think it's better to have a lot of cannons by your base than having a lot of bread or toast. In most cases, unless if your opponent's attacking you with a roar beetle or something. I guess like the one thing to remember is if a roar beetle or a splare are coming at you, build toast. So if a guy is coming at you, build toast. Otherwise, cannon. So hopefully that's not too complicated for people to remember. But that's probably. I remember you when you were going against Nivlak 13, and you were like in the grand finals, and he built one roar beetle and it just killed you. And I think that's when you were
Yeah.
like, that's because no one ever tried that against you before. I don't think you were familiar with that, but it is like one of like the most old tricks in the book where you just build a roar beetle early on. It's like the counter to the cell meta at the beginning, but like a good player will know, hey, a roar beetle's coming, build a wall of toast. And yeah, so I also think another good tip is maybe this is too complicated, but I think you can build a wall of bread from blocking your captain from coming in because it's really cheap and it's really easy to cover one end to the other. But generally speaking, I would say just build cannons. That's my I don't know. Hopefully this isn't confusing for newcomers, but I'll have like visuals while we're talking and maybe I'll try to show some good strategies so that makes sense to them.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Bread was one of those support strategies I mentioned. So I think the
Oh
first one
yeah.
I mentioned, and then but if the other thing that could work is the honey cannon, so just slow
Yes.
everything down.
The honey cannon is very good. Honestly, the honey cannon might be a good if you're a newcomer and you're worried about your opponent rushing you, the honey cannon's probably a good pick. Uh, Also, ants are good too because they can protect you from splares. Anyway, but yeah, so that's a good first tip. Okay, you talked about your first step. I talked about number two. What is your number two, Xceinie?
I would say, I guess utilize the cupcake if you have any spawners or can like it doesn't even really matter if you have spawners, but especially if you have spawners, if you're a newcomer, I feel like. the cupcake can just really cut the amount of time it takes to get your um kind of like ammo like ramped up, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I think you. So you basically your advice is utilizing the cupcake.
Utilizing it even if you don't even need spawners with it because if you use it with cannons, like that's like doubling your cannons
Yes.
essentially and making it that much harder for you. Think about this, like if you're trying to take out cannons, that the cannons you're trying to take out are twice as good at deterring you now instead of like like having twice as many cannons and firing from at all directions. The cannons you're trying to take out are going to be harder to like react to because they're going to shoot twice as much at you from one spot, which I feel like would be more difficult to navigate if you try and take out a bunch of cannons.
Yes. No. Yeah, I think that's good because the cupcake is a very. It basically just makes what you have already better. And yeah, so like you can put it by your cannons so the cannons can go out a little bit more. Um, you can also like I think spawners is very very important. Uh, and the cup you I feel like the spot that you would pretty much always want to have the cupcake if you're using spawners, especially if you're a newcomer. Um, and it's so for those who I should there should be a visual on screen. There should have been a visual on screen. I already said this already, but the cupcake is has this creates this circle light of the circle of light, and everything in that circle its production or its value doubles. The only exception is that the piggy bank does not. So if a cannon's in that circle, it will shoot twice as fast. If a spawner's in there, it will spawn twice as fast. If a UFO egg is in there, it will hatch twice as fast. So that's pretty much what it does. So, and it's not that hard to, once you understand it, it's not that hard to use.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, especially like with it's very friendly with like allowing things even touching the circle to be affected.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like try to squeeze things in all of the light, you know?
Yeah. I'll talk about my number one tip and you can tell me what you think. I think my number one tip, and it's like the biggest thing that I think I don't see people do, and that is whenever you think you have enough banks, build 10 more.
Oh, that was going to be my number three tip.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's good. Okay, that's good. Because, like, I honestly think it's just you want more piggy banks. Whenever you think you have enough, you should build 10 more. And
I have
then
a
build
different way
another
of
10 more.
describing it,
Yeah.
but it's kind of pretty similar.
What's your way of describing it?
My like way of approaching it is never stop thinking. Like you said, build 10 more. I say it is very similar, but like never stop thinking about your piggy banks and build them toward this could be I guess piggybacks. I kind of had like a 3A and 3B because they both relate to piggy banks, but build them towards the back of your base and don't build them out in the front of your base if you unless you have a really good
Oh, yeah.
defense system.
Well, I remember you did that a lot in your first tournaments where you would place the piggy banks pretty far out. And it was
Yeah.
you were the one who actually had like because I was keeping track of who built statistically who built the most piggy banks per match, and you were actually built more banks per match than like the people who like than Cable 19 and Nivlak 13 who were the champions at the time. And yeah, like you were just on top of it. Like once, but then you learned, okay, I need to put it more in the back. And then once you figured that out, your performance went up by a ton. And yeah, I really, it's the piggy having as many piggy banks as possible is really important you because it is your lifeblood. It's you want a bigger army than your opponent. That's how you win. And the only way you have a bigger army than your opponent is if you have more money. The only time you win with less piggy banks is if it's if you just outplay your opponent and you make more use of your money. And I feel like if you're a new player, that's less likely to happen. So you should just focus on building as many piggy banks as possible and do anything. And if you don't have enough space, you need to go expand and make more space. And basically, whoever typically wins comes down to whoever places the most amount of piggy banks. So no matter what your strategy is, no matter what units you're using, you need lots and lots of piggy banks. And then my number 2 tip, which I already mentioned, but I'll mention it again, but you should sell at the beginning to place more piggy banks because it will give you a head start. And you will be, if you don't, you'll be behind of your opponent. And if your opponent doesn't sell, then you'll be ahead of them. It's a bit risky because if your opponent rushes you, but the thing is, it's actually more, I think it's more risky to not sell most of the time. I do think there are some circumstances where you don't want to sell, but those are very rare. And for a newcomer, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's actually less risky for them to not sell. At least
That
like
would be mindful.
yeah. Like you don't have to like sell everything, but like you can at least sell like the walls of toast around because those are worth the most. Leave your cannons around, and then once you build like 8 piggy banks, I'd say like 8's kind of. We actually did like this math before. Like 8's kind of the magic number, or like 12. And once you have like 8 or 12, then you can kind of go out and like start putting the walls of defense by your choke points. But yeah, anyway, and then yeah, you already talked about your number 3. Or then your number 3 was building more piggy banks, right?
It was, yeah, never forget about your piggy banks. Like always
Oh,
think
never
I want to
forget.
place like 1 or 2 more. It's not like place 10 more. It's more like for me, well, eventually it might be like in the late game,
Yeah.
but it's like always try to put like 1 or 2 more down, then just get back out there and just like incrementally add 1 or 2, and then it'll become like 100 at some point if you're play a long enough game. And
Yes.
then at that point, like 50 plus is probably you're probably set. But even before that maybe. But yeah, you can just keep placing down if it's a wall v wall and it's a number of piggy banks versus number of piggy banks. Like obviously, then you want to get to like closer to I don't know, like up to 100 or whatever. I think the most piggy banks I put down was maybe like 147 or something like
Oh
that.
wow. Yeah, if you have 147, you should be winning unless if you like only have spawners and you can't spam money out as fast enough.
Yeah,
Because
it was
sometimes,
one against you.
yeah,
I think that
yes.
was a wall to wall with us.
Oh yeah, I think I was that the King's Kitchen match where we had like you had like the walls of salt cannons and or was that a different
I don't think
match?
you could fit that many piggy banks in that
I
stage.
think you're right. Yeah, that stage is a bit cramped.
It was like a giant club one or something.
That makes more sense. Yeah. I guess real quick, I'll talk about my number 3, and honestly, my number 3 might be more important than my number 2. So maybe I should have reordered it. But that is, do not turtle. So many newcomers. I think and maybe this is like a flaw in my game or something, but and maybe like I think in like the single player content I'm going to have to like condition players to not play this way. But this is not a tower defense. I'm going to build a strong defense like type of game. It is I'm trying to build as many piggy banks as possible, and I'm going to overwhelm you with my army. And
Yeah, if you do.
yes.
Oh, go ahead.
You can go.
I was just gonna say, like, I used to do that, I think, but now, if you do that against anyone who isn't a newcomer, they can kind of chip away at you a lot of the times,
Mhm.
especially if they have certain units like the garlic cannon or like I chip away with salt cannons a lot of the times now, where I'll just like release like meat shields or whatever, roar beetles, and then I'll
Yeah.
just incrementally like add salt cannons that'll like be difficult to like get back, take back down to expand your turtle shell. And
Mm.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because like that is like one of the most common things I see from new players is Firebird, he likes to call it Minecrafting, where you just carefully place in these defenses. Like you don't sell your starting, walls of bread and toast, and you're just adding to it. When you do that, a good opponent's going to be building up more piggy banks, and you're going to be behind on the economics game. What you want to do is you want to build as many piggy banks as possible, and then you want to go out and capture your choke points. And every map it's different, and then you want to build like a wall there, like you were saying in your number one tip. And then the other thing, this is like if I could add a number 4 tip, which is kind of cheating, but that would be you should screen scout, or in most games it's called screen cheating, but we call it screen scouting because it's not cheating. It's part of the game. It's in the design. You are supposed to look at your opponent's screen, and so if you're looking at them and they're about to rush you, you should react to that. You shouldn't just idly not look at it. And anyway, so do not turtle. You should try to expand as far as possible without. You don't have to rush your opponent, but you should try to like expand as soon as you can, and that way you have more real estate. Now you have more space to build more piggy banks. So really, I remember Nivlak 13. One of the first things he said to me after his first tournament was, "Oh, this game is a real estate war. It's a race to whoever can have the most real estate." And would you think that's an accurate description?
Mostly, I'd say that's like I give that like maybe 66%.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I'll cut that out. My daughter just walked in. I'll have to. Anyway, that's fine. What were you saying? I missed that.
I said I think I would say it's like 2/3 real estate, and then 1/3 I feel like I have another. It's like like it's 2/3 of the game, but there's another third that I feel like is also relevant that isn't related to just capturing the real estate.
No, you're 100% correct. It's once you understand a part of it's the real estate. I think that's like probably like the most capturing the real estate is the most important thing in the early game. But once you get into the late game, it changes a bit more. After that, it becomes more about the units you picked and what your strategy was going in, and making sure you have enough money to like you timed everything correctly to get like UFOs out or your spawners out, or you have enough banks to support this roar beetle gnome bust combo or something. Unless if you're thinking something else. Is that what you were thinking? Something like that?
I was thinking something like that. I was thinking more like the first 2/3 is real estate, and then the last third is micro.
Oh yeah. And when we say micro, I admit the terms of micro mecha is kind of like not what is traditionally called in RTS games, but in our case, micro is you moving your captain around, and you're micromanaging your own captain, and you're dodging bullets, you're placing units at key place locations. While macro is more of I have more spawners than you, I have more piggy banks than you, I have more UFOs than you. I am going to win by just like sitting here and laughing at you while I have this huge army coming at you. Well, micro is I'm going to like out finesse you. So
Yeah. So micro combined. Maybe it's like 1/6 is micro, and then 1/6 is the strategy you're implementing with all your units after you get the real estate.
Yes, agreed. And we are running short on time, but let's do a quick lightning round of the top 3 units that you recommend, and then I'll talk about the top 3 I recommend. Or you can go first if you'd like.
Okay. Let's see. 1 for newcomers would be the hive.
Yeah.
I'd say 2 would be the splair, and 3. Just let me think on it for a second here, because I honestly just feel like the cupcake. So I'd say the splair, the hive, and it could even be the portal, but the portal's a little more advanced. So I'll just go Splayer just because the Splayer is kind of a little tanky, and then
Yeah.
the Cupcake.
No, yeah, I think that's really good. Mine's actually very similar. I would have gone. Mine was Portal, Cupcake, Ant, but I think in some cases the Hive might be better for. So I think if you're more worried about people rushing you, the Hive is better. If you're not worried about people rushing you, then the Portal's going to be better. I picked the Ant because the Ant can defend you against Splares. Because that's the other. That's probably like the other tip important. Like, don't forget the triangle of Fly beats Ant, Ants beats Splares, and Splares beats Fly. That's like probably the most important triangle to remember. And then the Cupcakes is good because it boosted, but like I definitely wouldn't recommend the Anthill for newcomers. I think that's like the number one spawner I wouldn't recommend. But I think you can't
Yeah, I
go too
agree.
wrong with the Hive or the Portal. The Portal you just might lose if someone rushes you. That's like the risk you're going to run. But yeah, how do you think about the
Yeah.
UFO as a newcomer unit?
I think it works as long as as long as they have a cupcake and they know how to defend themselves. But
Yeah.
I would get good at just using a lot of the trio, which yeah, even like you could replace like Splayer with Ant or whatever, or like Portal or. But I think getting for newcomers, getting good at utilizing the fast, the cheap, and then kind of fast like hives. Like it's really easy just to like put them out there and annoy your opponent. That's why I picked Hive because
Oh
you
yeah.
can put it in the cup and it'll just like you can like snowball a little bit. If you get some banks out there with hives, that could be really annoying. So
Yeah,
that's why I
hives are
put that.
really annoying in the early game. And honestly, it might depend on the stage. So if you're in the space level, hives are really good in the space level, especially if you build them at the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. They just come attack your opponent at this weird angle, and it's really annoying. While if you're in a stage like the desert, the portal is I'd probably recommend more because it's way easier to defend yourself, and it's you get more macro games from the desert because it's just harder to rush your opponent. But yeah,
Yeah,
um,
definitely harder, but not impossible.
yeah, that not impossible. I've definitely you might not want to sell your cannons still because a good player might. I remember one time I was playing. I was a Firebird I was playing against. He sold everything, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna rush him. And I rushed him, and he wasn't able to build the cannons fast enough. But anyway, thank you for attending us with this first podcast. Next time we'll make a tier list for of the units for newcomers, which because I have an obsession with tier lists and I have a problem.
Oh, I love tier lists.
Yes. Anyway, I'll thank we'll talk we'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening. Bye.